A person stands quietly in a dealership parking lot, observing everything carefully. The salesperson presents the newest vehicle model, highlighting features with confident enthusiasm. Leather seats shine softly under bright lights, suggesting comfort, luxury, and modern appeal. A third row offers space, promising convenience for families needing extra seating capacity. A large touchscreen dominates the dashboard, resembling a compact television display inside. Financing terms appear reasonable, making the offer seem financially manageable and accessible. Safety ratings are excellent, reinforcing trust and reducing concerns about potential driving risks. Everything about the vehicle suggests it is a logical and appealing purchase decision. Yet the individual declines the offer without hesitation, speaking firmly and confidently. They turn away calmly, leaving behind the polished new vehicle and persuasive salesperson. The person walks back toward their aging sedan, parked quietly nearby without regret. They open the door, sit inside, and start the familiar engine, feeling relief. A sense of calm satisfaction replaces pressure as the engine hums steadily again. This moment carries deeper meaning, extending far beyond a simple purchasing decision. It becomes clear the situation was never truly about the vehicle itself. Across developed countries, SUVs dominate sales, outperforming nearly every other vehicle category. They surpass sedans, hatchbacks, coupes, and wagons, combined in numerous global automotive markets. Manufacturers respond by reducing production of traditional cars due to declining consumer demand. Automotive brands now prioritize SUVs as central offerings within their modern vehicle lineups. The market delivers a clear message, revealing strong consumer preference toward larger vehicles. Despite this trend, a distinct group of individuals consistently refuses to follow it. They search for alternatives, choosing smaller vehicles or maintaining older cars for years. These individuals keep aging vehicles longer than what typical consumer behavior suggests today. When questioned, they struggle to clearly explain their reasoning behind this firm decision. They mention practicality as one reason supporting their resistance toward purchasing larger vehicles. Cost considerations are also cited, suggesting financial awareness influences their buying behavior. Environmental concerns emerge as another explanation, though it does not fully explain intensity. None of these reasons completely justify the strength behind their persistent refusal behavior. The emotional intensity behind their choice becomes the key clue worth deeper examination. Understanding this behavior requires exploring historical influences, shaping attitudes toward consumption decisions. The story traces back to the year 1973 during crisis. An oil embargo disrupted supply, causing fuel prices to rise dramatically overnight. Arab Petroleum exporting nations restricted shipments, affecting the United States and Western countries. Gas stations experienced overwhelming demand as drivers rushed to secure limited fuel supplies. Long lines formed, stretching across city blocks filled with anxious waiting motorists. People spent hours waiting just for a chance to fill their tanks. Fuel rationing policies were introduced, limiting how much gasoline individuals could purchase. National speed limits were lowered to conserve fuel and reduce overall consumption. The relationship between people and automobiles changed suddenly during that single autumn. Cars stopped symbolizing freedom and began representing vulnerability and dependence on resources. Families discussed the crisis openly, creating shared awareness around scarcity and consumption. Children observed their parents waiting anxiously, absorbing emotional reactions to fuel shortages. These early observations created lasting impressions, shaping future beliefs about resource use. The lesson learned suggested that excess consumption carries consequences that eventually appear. This psychological imprint remained long after the crisis itself had officially ended. Alongside the crisis, another influence quietly shaped attitudes during the 1970s. The environmental movement entered mainstream awareness through education, media, and cultural discussion. Schools began teaching conservation, emphasizing responsible use of limited natural resources everywhere. Students learned that protecting the environment was both necessary and morally important. The first Earth Day marked a turning point, raising awareness about environmental responsibility. Television programs showed polluted rivers burning, highlighting consequences of industrial environmental neglect. These images created emotional reactions, embedding concern about ecological damage in young minds. A generation grew up with environmental awareness integrated into their developing moral framework. Wastefulness was no longer seen as simple inefficiency, but as something fundamentally wrong. This belief system reinforced earlier lessons about consumption learned during the fuel crisis. These influences created a lasting mindset centered on caution and responsibility. Values around restraint and careful usage became deeply rooted in everyday thinking. These ideas shaped how individuals later evaluated products and consumption choices in life. The impact extended quietly, influencing decisions without always being consciously recognized later. This foundation prepared the psychological ground for future resistance to excessive consumption patterns. The 1980s arrived, bringing a dramatic shift in cultural values and priorities. Consumption became celebrated openly, with visible wealth signaling success and social achievement. Large vehicles returned as symbols, representing prosperity, status, and financial confidence publicly. Automobiles evolved beyond utility, becoming expressions of identity and personal success stories. The Chevrolet Suburban began transforming from practical vehicle into recognizable status symbol. Its size and presence started communicating power, comfort, and elevated social standing widely. By the 1990s, the automotive landscape experienced a complete transformation nationwide. The Ford Explorer helped accelerate widespread adoption of sport utility vehicles significantly. SUVs became dominant, reshaping consumer expectations and redefining what vehicles represented culturally. This era normalized larger vehicles, presenting them as desirable lifestyle choices everywhere. However, individuals shaped by earlier decades sensed something deeply uncomfortable about this. The shift felt like a reversal of lessons learned during earlier formative experiences. Fuel inefficiency appeared excessive, contradicting beliefs about responsible and careful resource consumption. The increasing size of vehicles seemed disproportionate compared to actual practical needs. Marketing language emphasizing dominance and control felt aggressive and unsettling. To some, they watched neighbors embrace SUVs, yet chose quietly not to follow along. Their resistance was not political, but deeply instinctive and emotionally grounded within. The vehicles symbolized something conflicting with their internalized beliefs about consumption behavior. Psychologists describe this pattern using the concept symbolic self-completion refusal. People reject products not for function, but for what ownership would represent. Objects become symbols, carrying meanings tied to identity and social group belonging. Accepting a product can imply alignment with values they consciously reject internally. For many, SUVs represent excess and assumptions about limitless available resources everywhere. They also symbolize taking more space, fuel, and presence than truly necessary. Buying such vehicles would feel like contradicting personal values and self-identity. This creates a sense of internal conflict stronger than practical benefits offer. The refusal becomes a way to protect a consistent and meaningful self-image. Environmental reasoning often appears but functions more as justification than core motivation. The deeper mechanism remains identity preservation rather than purely rational decision-making. This explains why their stance persists despite changing technology and improved efficiency. Interestingly, many refusers are not consistently minimalistic across other areas of life. They may own large homes, travel frequently, and consume resources in significant ways. This inconsistency highlights that SUVs hold unique symbolic importance among consumption choices. Vehicles are highly visible, publicly communicating identity clearly within everyday social environments. A car in the driveway signals values more directly than hidden consumption habits. Refusing an SUV therefore becomes a visible statement about personal beliefs and priorities. Social psychologists identify this as signaling behavior expressed through deliberate non-purchasing decisions. Choosing not to buy communicates identity just as strongly as choosing purchases. This explains the emotional intensity behind explanations when refusers discuss their decisions. The refusal forms part of their identity, shaping how they understand themselves. Others misinterpret, assuming financial limits, political motives, or eccentric personality traits instead. In reality, the decision reflects long-standing values formed through early formative experiences. Each refusal reinforces an internal narrative about identity, beliefs, and personal responsibility. Rational arguments fail because the issue concerns meaning rather than objective product features. The deeper question remains what personal values you refuse to compromise in life.